compassion. Okay. I'll read a verse from the Bhagavad Gita. So it's first chapter. Can everybody hear? Wait by a microphone, I'm going to get a microphone. Tell me to shout up. Because somebody was like me, he is not so good. So this is first chapter, text 27. Tan samiksha sakonteya sarvan bandhun avastitam vipaya para yavishto vishidam idam abravit. When the son of Kunti, Arjuna, saw all these different grades of friends and relatives, he became overwhelmed with compassion and spoke thus. Arjuna uvacha Trishvemam Swajanam Krishna Yutsam Samupastitam Siddhanti Mana Dharani Mukamcha Parisushyati. Arjuna said, my dear Krishna, seeing my friends and relatives present before me in such a fighting spirit, I feel the limbs of my body quivering and my mouth drying up. Purport. Any man who has genuine devotion to the Lord has all the good qualities which are found in godly persons or in the demigods. Whereas the non-devotee, however advanced he may be in material qualifications by education and culture, lacks in godly qualities. As such, Arjuna, just after seeing his kinsmen, friends and relatives on the battlefield, was at once overwhelmed by compassion for them, who had so decided to fight amongst themselves. As far as his soldiers were concerned, he was sympathetic from the beginning, but he felt compassion even for the soldiers of the opposite party, foreseeing their imminent death. And while he was so thinking, the limbs of his body began to quiver and his mouth became dry. He was more or less astonished to see their fighting spirit. Practically the whole community, all blood relatives of Arjuna, had come to fight with him. This overwhelmed a kind-hearted devotee like Arjuna. Although it is not mentioned here, still one can easily imagine that not only were Arjuna's bodily limbs quivering and his mouth drying up, but he was also crying out of compassion. Such symptoms in Arjuna were not due to weakness, but to his soft-heartedness, a characteristic of a pure devotee of the Lord. It is said, therefore, Yashyasti Bhaktir Bhagavati Kinchana Sarvargunas Tatra Samasate Suraha Harab Abhaktasya Kuto Mahad Gunha Manorate Nasati Davato Bahihi. One who has unflinching devotion for the personality of Godhead has all the good qualities of the demigods, but one who is not a devotee of the Lord has only material qualifications that are of little value. This is because he is hovering on the mental plane and is certain to be attracted by the glaring material energy. That's Srimad Bhagavatam 5:18-12. Om Gantimirandasya Garanjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Kacharine Nirvikesha Shunyavadi Prastacharine Sarine. Is everybody here okay? Yeah? You can hear? So compassion. Has anybody heard of the word empathy? I'm sure everybody's heard of it. What does empathy mean? I never thought I'd do this. You know, we all think we're going to go on forever, don't we? But I thought it's time. I sorted out my funeral arrangements. And I got one brochure. It was called Empathy. I thought, what a name. What a completely useless name, you know. There's nothing you can do. What's empathy?
Feeling for somebody.
Feeling for somebody. So somebody was left, what can you do for them, you know? It's a completely useless sentiment, isn't it? In that respect. And so there's a difference between, there's material empathy, which means that we just think, oh, poor so-and-so, you know. Yeah, I do feel, but it doesn't do anything. What good is it? It's useless. But empathy is important because empathy means we actually. What does it mean? Nobody's really said so yet. What does it mean? Empathic. When we're empathy.
When you feel the pain of somebody else.
You feel pain for others.
You feel pain of them, you know, which they feel as well. So you're both feeling the same.
You can put yourself in their position.
Yeah.
Or you may have been in that position.
Yeah.
So we can, in Bhagavad Gita it does say that, it says we can understand others' suffering by virtue of our own suffering. So it's, that's empathy, that we can empathise, we call it, we can feel for others. And actually, it becomes an important thing. Actually, it doesn't become, we can empathise for us, we may be able to do something about it, right? Somebody's like, you know, they may be hungry, you know, we buy them a meal or we give them some money. And they're, you know, they're injured, so we take them to hospital. But at the end of the day, we're not really doing much, are we? You know, they're going to get that treatment, whether we give it them or not. It's all in the it's the karma, isn't it? So material empathy is complete waste of time. Arjuna, we have to remember, he's in a special position. But a person will think like Arjuna due to his karma in this world. It makes him think of and act in a certain way. And so he's thinking like a materialist that he can, and we all do it, even though we're devotees. Is it right? You know, he's seeing the other side, I don't want to kill them, let them live. You know what I mean? I'll just go to Himalayas and take it easy. That's basically what, and that, you know, right in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada condemns that. When I first heard about Krishna consciousness, I thought, it's not bad this. I just pack in my job, you know. I go and live in a monastery, and you know, I grow a few potatoes and a few things, so I can live, and that's it. Voila. And I believe that. But then when I read Prabhupada's purport, I thought, no, it's not that. We can't give up anything. But Arjuna's in that false conception. And still as devotees, I know I do it, you'll see somebody, a devotee may be suffering, and you try to help them. And it don't work. It doesn't work. You know, if you try to help them materially, you know, I mean, it's a good sentiment, but you have to also help them spiritually. You know, if you just try to help people materially, it backfires. It backfires every time. Has anybody had that experience? Nobody. Must be just me. either.
What do you mean it backfires when you help somebody materially?
Well, if you're a devotee, you should have helped them spiritually.
Mm.
And so they don't make any spiritual advancement. In fact, they may become lazy due to your help. You understand?
Yeah, but if they're starving, how can, you know, they probably do need some food to give
Yeah,
them
but
the
you give them,
strength to
but you give
practice.
them prashad.
Yeah.
When you give them some help, it's always some spiritual help along with the material help.
Mm.
And then that is actually helpful. But I didn't want to go down this line too much. It was just an experience I have. It doesn't seem like anybody else has had that experience, so maybe it's my misconception, I don't know. But the point is that compassion has to be properly understood, and we've all heard this in Bhagavad Gita, that compassion for the soul is real compassion. I remember I was in Manchester, it was probably about 1987, I think it was, and there was a devotee called Sri Bhuvanath. He used to go around with what they call the festival team, but they really went to town on it. They used to fly posts everywhere. They were doing books and giving out. So when he had a program, he had a big hall, and there were 700 people in this hall. It was unbelievable. And then the lights went down. Then we had this. Help! 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 And everybody was like, what's going on? And even I was actually shocked. And there was this devotee in the aisle, crawling along going, help! And then he said, I'm drowning. And so, then a few seconds later, somebody came on the stage. They were looking around, Don't worry, I'll help you. And he put a swimming cap on, and put a pair of goggles on, and he jumped off the stage. And he was swimming towards this devotee. And he got to him, and he got hold of his coat, and he went, yank. And then he were opening it up, and he was swimming back to the stage then. And then he got on the stage, says, I've saved him. And everybody's like, people they didn't quite get it, the devotees got it straight away, And I'm thinking, I'm going, I'm not out. But the point is, unless, this is their outward dress, and we all think with their outward dress, is that right? All think it's their outward dress. Don't be embarrassed. It's definitely, I think I am anyway. I have to really strain to understand on the soul. So Krishna consciousness means we act on the platform of the soul, even though we may be unconscious to it. We do devotional activities. And he says if we carry on doing that and we keep getting knowledge, we build on that, and our consciousness will change due to purification. And we'll start to actually work on the platform of the soul in due course of time. We make the effort, but the principle of following this process, it's Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. And if we follow it properly, it actually works. If we follow the instructions of Shastra, there's actually potency in those instructions just by following them. I didn't want to go too much down this because this is something everybody's heard before, but I want to talk about, do we actually, we hear the instructions of Shastra, but do we follow them? What do you think? Do we follow them? All of them? Why? Why don't we follow them?
Too difficult.
Hey?
Difficult. Needs lots of energy. Can't be bothered.
Have you heard of integrity? Some tricky words here. Integrity. What's integrity mean?
Means being proud of something. Proud of what you believe for.
What you believe?
Integral.
What's an integer? Have we got any mathematicians here?
Number.
Integer.
It's a what?
It's a number.
It's a number. What kind of number?
It's a whole number.
A whole number. Everything's in it. It's integral. And so there's many different descriptions of integrity. But in the one that there were four actually in the dictionary, and one which seemed to hit it off best was means that complete. Yeah, complete. Krishna has integrity. Everything that comes from him has integrity. Om Purnamada Purnamidam. Purnamudachyate. Purnasya Purnamadaya. Purnameva Vasishyate. Everything that comes from the Supreme Lord is coming from the complete whole. And it's complete in itself. Whatever is produced of a complete whole is complete in itself. Even though so many complete units emanate from him, he still remains complete. So this body is, it's complete self-realization. This material world is complete for self-realization. So, but, integrity means that we have values, right? Is this a bit difficult for Friday night? What do you think? Is it? It's alright, is it? I can see some eyes rolling in.
It's Saturday, am I right?
Eh?
It's Saturday.
It's Saturday. Oh. It's even worse. That's why there's not many here. That's why there's not so many here. This is a big night, isn't it? No integrity. Yeah. So integrity means whatever my values are, I actually follow them. I do them. Yeah. What about integrity amongst thieves? They go and steal. They go and
It's not
steal.
very much.
Eh?
It's not.
No, they've got integrity. They go and steal from somebody,
Yeah.
and then they make sure that everybody gets a fair share.
Ah. Probably both.
The sheriff, they've got integrity. So this is not the kind of integrity. So we have to develop spiritual integrity. This is a process of devotional service. And we develop the proper integrity by what we're doing now, by hearing. By hearing from Shastra, associating with devotees, following the process, the heart becomes purified and we start to understand what we should do. The devotees are the external manifestation of the Super Soul. Fixed up devotees anyway. And so, I'll tell you a story. Everybody winds up, So, there's a nice story in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's about Bali Maharaj. Does everybody know Bali Maharaj? So, Bali Maharaj is in the 8th canto. He was actually a demon. He was born in a demon family, but he was the king of the demons. And he was defeated by Indra. It's the goodies and the baddies, isn't it? That's where they get it from, the demigods and the demons. And who usually wins? Who usually wins?
The goodies usually.
Eh? The goodies usually win. So, the demigods, they wipe the floor with the demons. They kill nearly every single one of them. And then Shukracharya, their spiritual master, demons, they can also be very good with mystic power. One of the mystic powers is that they can heal people. And so he had the ability, he brought them back to life. Can you believe it? He brought the demons back to life. All those that were in one piece anyway. And they were so grateful. Bali Maharaj was the king of the day, that they worshipped him like anything. And then Shukracharya became so pleased with them, he benedicted them that they'd be able to fight like anything against the demigods. Give them special weapons, special mantras. You get them fired up. And then the demigods, they dropped a clangor. They look, they didn't worship the spiritual master very nicely. There was some insult took place, and so, you know, that means that when we do that to a superior, we can't expect any good results. So Bali Maharaj, he attacked the heavenly planets. When the demigods saw him coming, they thought, wow, you know, look at, he's so powerful. So they went to Brihaspati, the spiritual master. And what did Brihaspati? Actually, Brihaspati, they insulted him. So he disappeared. So they went to Lord Brahma, you know, the leader of the universe, most experienced person in the universe. And Lord Brahma said, don't even try to defeat them. They'll kill, you know, they'll win. He says they've been benedicted by the spiritual master Shukracharya. So you have to hide for the time being until things change. And so, they were hiding everywhere. Indra was living in the stem of a lotus plant in the King of Heaven. He had to do that. And he was starving. And so, you know, if you were the mother of the demigods, what would you think? Deity, or the mother of the Aditi, is the mother of the demigods. And so if you saw your son suffering like that, what would you do? What would you do? You'd complain, wouldn't you? So she went to her husband, Kashyapa Muni, and said, what are you going to do about it? So, what are you going to do about it? And he says, look, he says, you're a devotee, in due course of time, things will change. You know, you just keep chanting Hare Krishna, and then eventually Krishna will reciprocate. But she wanted it doesn't work straight away, does it? Have you noticed? It takes time. And so she couldn't wait. And what are you going to do about it? So then he said, okay, I'll give you a vow to follow. And it was called the Payovrata vow. Has anybody heard of that vow? What does Payo mean? In milk. Payovrata. She had to offer milk to Supreme Lord and do so many ritualistic things. You know, that was the type of worship then. And if you do this perfectly for 12 days, then Lord Vishnu will appear. And so she did. Lord Vishnu appeared and said, what can I do for you? He said, I want the demigod planets back for the demigod, my son. So can you actually incarnate and shift these demons, in other words? And so he said, okay, worship your husband very nicely, and then you'll have a son who will actually be competent to do that. And so she did that, and she had a son. What was his name? Anybody remember? Vamanadev. Vamana. It means the dwarf Brahmin. He was a little dwarf Brahmin boy. He was so cute, unbelievably cute.
Was he Irish?
Eh?
Was he Irish? If he'd been a dwarf, he could have been one of them little people.
Yeah. That's different. But yeah, so you know, when he took birth, he asked his mother, what can I do for you, mother? And she told him, you know, I want to get Bali Maharaj out of the heavenly planets and back in the demoniac planets and my son. He said, no problem. He said, I'll go to Bali Maharaj now. And Bali Maharaj was performing sacrifice. Why would he perform his sacrifice? He's got the highest post in the material world. Why would he perform sacrifice? You perform sacrifice when you want something, don't you? So why would he perform it? To keep it. You have to keep putting a bank balance in, keep your karma. And so he was performing this sacrifice. And Vamanadev, he went to this field. It was in Brihaspati in the heavenly planets. He's a descendant of Bhrigu Maharaj. Bhrigu was actually a saint. And when Bali Maharaj saw him coming, he thought, just look at that little Brahmin boy. And he was always captivated. He thought of something like anything. And he thought, I'll give this little Brahmin boy anything. And then when you know, Vamanadev got nearer, he started to speak. Has anybody heard somebody speak something? And it sounds really good, but he ain't got a clue what they're talking about. Has anybody
Every day that happens, that one.
Eh?
Happens every day.
You're listening to one now, right?
No.
It sounds like it, you know. So, yeah, has anybody been in that situation?
Yes,
Some people can speak really good, you see. And so, you know, that's Krishna's ability. When Krishna was speaking to the four Kumaras, after they cursed these two gatekeepers, the Kumaras were like, they thought, oh, here comes Vishnu. We don't know whether we've done right or wrong. And Vishnu came with us, you know, with a smiling face. So I thought, you know, we'll be okay. Then he started speaking, you know, really eloquent language, and they couldn't work out whether they were angry or satisfied with them. In complete anxiety. So that's how Krishna speaks. He speaks so eloquently that, you know, it's very difficult to understand. Even in the material world, people who do that, you know, they're particularly in a particular field of activities, they start speaking that language and you just don't know. So anyway, the point is that when he heard him speak, he sort of completely softened, and he said to him, my dear brown boy, I'm so satisfied with your, you know, with your words. He said, you can ask me any benediction you want. And so he said, okay, so I just want 3 paces of land. And, you know, Bali Maharaj said, oh, you're just a boy. You don't know what you're asking for. I can give you the whole universe if you want. Try again. And what did Bali Maharaj, what did Vamanadev say?
3 steps of land.
Yeah, he asked for 3 steps of land again. But when he said, you know, you can ask for something better, what did Vamanadev say? He said, if I'm not satisfied with 3 paces of land, I'll never be satisfied with anything in this world. What does that mean? It means we should minimize our material needs. It's 3 paces of land, you can take rest, you can cook, and you can do what you want. We're making that point that, you know, when we're materially motivated, we always want more. The more we get, the more you want, right? It's never satisfied. So he was actually instructing Bali Maharaj. He wanted the whole universe. And so, you know, Bali Maharaj, you could see, was serious. He said, oh, Tatastu, okay. And so did Vamanadev do. He expanded himself right up into the planetary systems. Then with his foot, he just put his foot into the middle of the universe. With his second step, he kicked a hole in the universe. And the Ganges came in. And then he said to Vamanadev, you said 3, you promised me 3. Just before he actually gave him that benediction, you know, when he asked Vamanadev, what kind of benediction can I give you? At that time, Shukracharya came up and said, don't give him anything. He says, this is Vishnu in disguise. He'll take everything away from you. So another lesson to learn. What did Bali Maharaj say? What did Bali Maharaj think? Yeah.
Don't be ridiculous or something.
No,
He probably said, don't be ridiculous, it's not Vishnu.
no. Well, he was actually intelligent. Most people would have said that. They would have followed the instructions. But he said that actually everything belongs to Vishnu. So if he's asking for it, I should give it to him. So that's the point, integrity. It was difficult for him to do, but he'd actually promised him that, you know, I'll give you 3 paces landed also, you know, so that even if he does ask for more than what I've got, if he takes everything away, he's due to it. And so that's how we, you know, in devotional service, that's our position. We don't have anything. We don't have anything. In a few years, it will be taken away. It may be taken away before then. And that's actually also helpful for our devotional development. But we're so attached, we'd be too disturbed. So the process of devotional service is gradual. We are developing integrity, and if we follow the process, we'll be able to follow that integrity. We'll be able to follow that process externally. So this is a point I wanted to make. What time shall I finish? Because you want to do something else also.
30 minutes.
Eh? 30? Okay. Is that alright? 30 minutes? You manage that?
Yeah.
It's alright. Okay, so first of all, we have to be compassionate for ourselves. Having integrity is actually compassion for ourselves. If we don't actually practice integrity, we're not actually being compassionate to ourselves. I read one, it was in Back to God magazine, and it was the first Back to God magazine I got. I was practicing outside the temple. I've been practicing for about 6 months. I started chanting, you know, I'll get a few rounds on my belt. Then for the Bhagavatam set and a VTG subscription, and ching, it came through the door, and I couldn't wait to open it, and I opened it. Oh no. There were a full face, shaven headed devotee with beads, tear-like, you know, and I thought, I'll never be able to do that. You know, if I walk down Womerl Street and that like that, you know, they'd lock me up. So I was really disappointed. I thought, that's what you have to be a devotee. Because I was a novice, you know, I didn't know. And then, so, you know, turning the pages. And all of a sudden, I saw this youth, another full page with this youth. We have, you know, you got a T-shirt on, you know, with slogan on. You know, I don't know what the slogan was, but long hair, you know, a pair of Levi's with holes in, and some jeopardy between us. I thought, wow, there's hope for me. So, you know. Anyway, we're talking about what were we talking about now? We're talking about we went on from Bali Maharaj to having compassion for the self. Yeah? Or, you know, be compassionate. So, that's it. In the Back to God magazine, there was one article, and this article, it was by you, what do you call her, the man? What's her name? The temple president at the moment. Vishaka. She's the temple president there now. And she's pretty, you know, astute in philosophy, and she wrote this article about integrity. And we're talking about integrity for our compassion for ourselves. And she wrote that one should embrace oneself with love and compassion, even though we're not perfect, even though we've got so many, you know, things that we can't do, things that we're attached to. He said we shouldn't feel bad about it. We should embrace ourselves with love, and we should be compassionate to ourselves in that way as well. Compassionate, making, you know, by following our values. But if we can't, we should still be compassionate. And then eventually, by that mood, we'll be positive, and we'll be enthusiastic to carry on, and eventually we'll overcome these obstacles. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it backs this up. In the 11th canto, 20th chapter, I think it's 27 and 28 verses. I don't know the Sanskrit, but it says, my devotee, even though he can't give up sense gratification, and he actually laments that he's not able to give up this sense gratification, he should actually remain happy in devotional service. Sorry, he should remain happy. And he knows that by not actually following it properly, I'll suffer. Because I'm following the process, eventually I'll be able to overcome it. So so this is self-compassion first, yeah? And then we can actually be compassionate towards others. That's the mood of this movement. You know, Dayananda Maharaj once asked, what service really pleases you? And you know, Prabhupada was pushing book distribution. And he was saying it was the best service, and Shiva Maharaj were doing, I shouldn't mention names, should I? But anyway, he was pushing book distribution. And so he thought Prabhupada would say, you know, book distribution. And Prabhupada said, if you love Krishna, learn to purify yourselves and love Krishna, that's the first thing. Then, as we're doing that, as our heart starts to become purified, we can feel inspired to actually help others. It's not just be empathy. Empathy is needed, but it should inspire compassion, something that we do. Not that we just actually lip service, we just speak about it, or think about it, we do something. And so that's the mood of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's called Mahavadanya, the most compassionate incarnation of the Lord. Just try and imagine how compassionate he was. Put yourself in Lord Chaitanya's position. You're actually, I think he was 24 years old, right? 24 years old. He got a young wife who was actually, the goddess of fortune. She was so beautiful. He got a mother, a Bengali mother. They say at the heart of a Bengali mother, they're very compassionate to their children. And he got so many devotee friends. And he gave it all up. He took sannyas. He gave up his wife, young wife, she was only 16. That must have been heartbreaking. Yeah? For both. And he tolerated it. He gave up his mother, who was lamenting like anything. And he shaved his head. People were fainting. His hair was so beautiful. And then he went to preach, just to preach to conditioned souls. Lord Chaitanya always sets an exemplary standard, or example, just to show that, he's prepared to go through the difficulty. We won't have to necessarily do the same, but we should have the same, we should develop the same mood. Prabhupada did that as well, didn't he? Prabhupada, he was horrified when he thought he was going to have to leave his family and everything. But by Krishna's arrangement, it just all fell into place. And he gave up. And later on, actually, we never lose when we actually surrender to Krishna. We never lose. Does anybody think they'll lose? Does anybody think they'll lose if they surrender to Krishna? What do you think? Are you sure? Okay. What's your name? So anybody who says no, then they should surrender, right? No, we're never going to lose. Prabhupada, later on, he said I was going to leave my young children, wife, all my friends. And then after a few years, he says, now I've got hundreds of children, thousands of children, thousands of friends all over the world. So Prabhupada also set the same example. And then Lord Chaitanya, he showed that even, you know, a good teacher, what does he do? And a good teacher's called an acharya. Yeah? He shows by example. A good teacher gets hold of the student, gets hold of his hand, and shows him how to write the alphabet. So this is what Lord Chaitanya did. When he preached to different people at different times in different ways. And I can't remember all the names of these different preachers, but there's he preached to one in Sanskrit or Bengali they call it Kukarkikas. These are false logicians. These are people who are intelligent, but they've got it wrong. Yeah? Very difficult to preach that type of person. Who's the false logician in the Chaitanya Chaitamrita? Who's a big pandit? Who's a big scholar in Jagannath Puri? Sarvabhauma, wasn't it? Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He was the biggest scholar in the world at that time. Nobody could actually compete with him. How are you going to preach to somebody like that? How would you preach to somebody like that? How would you deal with somebody like that? What he did, he went to see him. Anyway, they came in contact, and he was a sannyasi, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he looked at Lord Chaitanya and thought, he'll never make it. You know, he's just too good looking. All the women will be interested in him. So, you know, he really, only chance he's got is if he's really fixed in the Vedanta philosophy. And so he offered to preach to or teach Lord Chaitanya. And so Lord Chaitanya agreed, even though he's the Supreme Lord himself, even though he knew everything. And he listened to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya for 7 days. I mean, how long are you going to listen to me for? Like 45 minutes maybe, right? For 7 days. And he never said a word. And that's a bit eerie when nobody said anything, you know. Am I just, you know, am I getting through to anybody? Am I boring the pants off everybody? Or, you know, don't they understand? Or is there something? Yeah. So after a while, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, he says that you haven't spoken for 7 days. You haven't queried anything. You haven't questioned me. Nothing. He says, can you understand what I'm saying? He says, I can answer. And Lord Chaitanya was very respectful. He says, if you permit me to speak, I can answer you. He says, please go and speak. He says, the Vedanta Sutra is very simple and straightforward, but you're presenting it in a complicated way. He said, I can understand Vedanta Sutra, but I can't understand what you're saying. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was mortified. But he said it in such a way that, you know, he wasn't mortified, but he could accept it. And so then, you know, the conversation went on for some time, and eventually Lord Chaitanya asked him to quote the Atmarama verse. And then Lord Chaitanya explained the Atmarama verse according to Vaishnava philosophy, and he completely captivated Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He became a devotee, just like that. So what quality did he actually exhibit there?
Patience.
Patience, yeah. And what was the quality? Patience is always rewarded, they say, don't they? Because with patience, eventually things will be able to see. see the wood for the trees. What other quality is there in?
So
I've already mentioned it
he
actually.
didn't give feedback unless it was
Eh?
asked. He didn't give his opinion unless it was asked.
What was that? You have to speak right up.
So he didn't give his opinion unless he was asked to.
He didn't give his opinion unless he was asked.
I can't
Humble,
understand.
humble.
Did he only give his opinion when he was asked?
Yeah, he gave, but he was respectful. He was respectful. If you respect people, they'll respect you. So, you know, and there were 4 other types of people he preached to. I can tell you about them if you're interested.
Yes.
Yeah. Who's the Nindakas? The Nindakas are the blasphemers. Who are the blasphemers in Chaitanya Chaitamrita? Is that who's read Chaitanya Chaitamrita, by the way? Nobody. So I'm wasting my time asking them. The blasphemers are the Prakashananda Saraswati. He was a Mayavadi. They don't believe in a person as God. They believe in everything's impersonal. Ultimately, we're all part of the impersonal Brahman. Yeah? And so they always blaspheme the Vaishnavas. They're always studying. And Lord Chaitanya, he was following the Vaishnava process, which means glorification of the Lord. So therefore, he was always dancing in ecstasy and singing. And they couldn't understand how, he just thought he was a sentimentalist. You know what I mean? And so they were actually blaspheming him and you know, criticising. And two of Lord Chaitanya's close associates, Tapana Mishra and Chandrasekhar, you know, they couldn't stand it. And they went to Lord Chaitanya and said, look, you heard just something about these people. And Lord Chaitanya said, they're just neophytes. I don't even want to bother with them. And but then later on, one Brahmin came, this Brahmin who was intelligent, and he invited all these Mayavadis. I don't know whether they're all 10,000 there or not, but he had 10,000 followers. He was a powerful guru. But there was a fair amount there. He went on the plea of this Brahmin to have, you know, he invited him for, you know, for lunch with the other sannyasis, and so he agreed to go. He respected the Brahmin's request. And when he went, he sat in, you know, we've got a showroom out there. Yeah? Would anyone like to sit in the showroom? You know. And, you know, in India, the showrooms are not like they are here, you know. This way everybody's walking all over the place and they wash their feet. There's all kinds of contaminations there. And Lord Chaitanya sat there. And, you know, because he's a super, you know, it was just, it was effulgent like anything. And their philosophy is that eventually, by purification, we're all God. We all become Narayan. And so they thought this person's reached the perfection. And so, but they couldn't understand why they were sitting in a dirty place. And so the head of the Mayavadis, Prakashananda Saraswati Thakur, he went over, said, my dear sir, please get up and come and sit with us. Why are you sitting in this dirty place? Why has something untoward happened to you? Are you a Marosa? He said, no. Anyway, he came, and then they were all enamoured by his qualities, and then they started to say, you know, why are you actually, you know, avoiding doing what a sannyasi should do, and that's study Vedanta Sutra? Why are you actually just dancing like a madman? This is not proper etiquette. What did he say? He said, my spiritual master said, I'm not qualified to read Vedanta Sutra. He said, so he just told me to sing and dance and chant the holy name. And so, if somebody who's, you know, elevated says that, and you're not as elevated as them, you know, you're going to think twice about your position, aren't you? So you undermine their authority by doing that. And then he eventually, philosophically, completely defeated them. And eventually they all just surrendered to him. So what qualities are shown there? Humility, isn't it? Humility. Respect again. What else? Compassion. Yeah, compassion. We're talking about compassion, it was just common to all of them. So we can use these qualities when we meet anybody. And by those qualities, we're already actually preaching to them. It's so important, isn't it? Just thinking you're in a position and somebody treats you like the Supreme Lord or a king, naturally you're going to be amenable to them, aren't you? What other types of persons are there in this world? There's the atheists. How do you deal with an atheist? Another difficult one, isn't it? A real atheist, not somebody who's like on the fence. They call them what do they call them?
Agnostic.
Agnostic. They're okay, they're intelligent. They're willing to listen. Yeah. Well, atheists. Who's the atheist in Chaitanya Chaitamrita? It's Jagai and Madai. You know, they wrote the book on all the wrong things to do. Whatever you name it, they did it. So how did they preach to them? Does anyone know the story? So Lord Nityananda is Lord Chaitanya's brother, and Lord Chaitanya sent Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur, two of them preach, and he said, go and, go door to door with straw in your mouth, want humility. And Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda said, please chant the holy name of the Lord as soon as he opened the door. But then they came down the road and they saw this huge commotion in the middle of the road. And so they went to have a look, and they looked over the top of the crowd, and there were these two brothers, Jagai and Madai. And they were actually completely intoxicated. And they were so violent, they were fighting one another. And so, Lord Chaitanya thought, if we can save these two, it'll be, it'll impress a lot of people. We can change a lot of people to Vaishnavism. And as they're working, the people said, don't go, they'll kill you. Don't go. But Lord Chaitanya went through, Lord Nityananda went through, and he started preaching to them, and they just chased them off. But then he wasn't, the chasemen, eventually they couldn't catch them. But then the next day he did the same again. And this time, I think it was Madai, he picked up a piece of stone, a piece of pot, and he threw it at Nityananda. And it broke his head, and there was blood flowing. And then Lord Chaitanya heard about this. And Lord Chaitanya is the most merciful. But also, when a devotee is hurt, he's very strict. So he came and he got his Sudarshan chakra disc, and he was going to kill them both. And then Lord Nityananda said, don't kill these two. He says, if you kill these two, you have to kill everybody. Everybody has this tendency in this age. And so Lord Chaitanya, anyway, cut a long story short, they surrendered to Lord Chaitanya, and he said, provided you don't actually do anything, you follow the principles of devotional life, and don't do diabolical things in the future, you keep yourself clean, then you'll actually make spiritual progress. I think I absolve you of all your sins. And that's what happens when we come to this movement. As soon as we start following Lord Chaitanya's instructions, we're actually freed from all the past if we do it seriously. And so it was Nityananda who exhibited the qualities in this case. That's extreme mercy. Even though, you know, when we try to tell somebody about devotional service, we don't always get a good result, do we? And sometimes people like say they don't use kind words. Is it right? Get a job, something like that, you know. I think that because we're, you know, not necessarily working like somebody else, that we're lazy. That's one thing. So we've got to be tolerant. What's it? Which is, what do we say? More tolerant than a piece of stone? More tolerant. Well, that's lower than a straw in the street. More tolerant than a tree. Isn't it? Why a tree?
The tree doesn't move.
Why not the earth? Eh?
A tree doesn't move, usually.
Well, yeah, I mean, but the earth doesn't. More about the earth. In one part of the scripture, the earth's tolerance as well. You know, everybody's doing so many things on the earth, aren't they? Everybody's treading on it. It's getting abused in so many ways, isn't it? So what's wrong? So why don't we say more tolerant than the earth? And the tree grows on the earth. It tolerates the tree as well. Because the earth complains sometimes, but the tree doesn't. When did the earth complain? Eh? What?
Like natural disasters.
Well, I suppose that's one way of looking at it. Yeah, it does actually backfire.
Well, what we do to the earth, you know, we can do what we want to the earth, but we will still survive whatever we throw at it, but we will kill ourselves. That's the thing with the earth, isn't it? So
This
the
example,
earth will survive.
this example is in the Krishna book.
Yeah.
You know, the earth, it went with the demigods to Lord Vishnu and complained, remember? The earth in the form of a cow. But the tree doesn't. What else? We've done 3 already, right? We got time for another one. Okay, we'll do the other ones next week, next time I come. So we're going to stop here, but the point is compassion. You know, this is a quality which is needed if we're going to help people to, you know, take up a process of, you know, rectification and not just rectification, but emancipation with the Supreme Lord. And that'll solve all our problems. So first of all, compassionate to ourselves, right? Then in due course of time, we can be fully compassionate to others. As we go in, we don't have to wait. Whatever little bit of an impetus we've got, our ability to give something, that's it, that's enough. Everybody can do a little bit. We should have integrity. We know it's the right thing to do, so like every Saturday, you know, is it every Saturday? Or every second Saturday? Book distribution.
It's either Saturday or Sunday.
Eh?
Yeah, most weekends. Most weekends.
Every weekend.
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
So, you know, they have a book table in the sense of Market Street, not Market Street, the Moor. And all we have to do is go and stand there at the side of the books. And we made a start. Just by being there, people appreciate. And then somebody may come over and say, I was walking in the park, in Princess Park in Manchester, I think it was either yesterday or the day before. And for some reason, I never go out in the morning and chant. I always chant my japa in the temple. Because I want it to be good quality. You go outside, you know, and you're like a radar, you're just picking up everything around you. And but this day I just felt impelled to go. I walked into the park, and as soon as I got on the straight, I just looked around to see if anybody was coming, and this runner coming by, this Mataji. She said, "Hey, I want to talk to you." And I said, "What?" And she started asking questions. She says, she says, I've got a garment which I've made, a woolen garment, and I'm stitching all slogans to it from different people. I stop somebody every day, so I'm stopping you today. Is that okay? I said, of course it is. She said, well, 2 things which, make you happy. And so anyway, I got talking to her, and she was asking her so many questions. We were there for nearly half an hour. Just by wearing this, or just by wearing teal, or neck beads. People start to ask questions. So if you stood at the table in the middle of, in the middle of Sheffield, somebody's going to come up and ask you questions. And if you start answering them, you'll feel enlivened like anything. Just give them you're just pointing somebody in the right direction. We have to make the effort. Yeah. What do you think? Is it a deal? Okay, take the name.
Whose story? I don't know.
Okay, we'll stop there then. Thank you for listening. We're going to have a little bit of talk by Ramanas, right?